the first thing I want to talk about is what is going on with this El Salvador thing. Like this is pretty
Yeah.
disturbing. I always had a strong suspicion that uh, it's one of these things when you just kick people out the country without any due process. How do you know these people are gang members? So I just saw the New York Times did an expose where now they're starting to say that maybe a lot of these people are not gang members, right? And then there was a whole thing of like how they have a point system, and you get 8 points and you get kicked out, you get sent to El Salvador. But 4 points is for the way you dress. 4 points is for a tattoo. So it's like you get the wrong tattoo, you have your genes a certain way, and you can get sent to the worst prison in the world in El Salvador. Of course, we know the guy that was from Maryland that got sent, and now they're not even going to send him back, defying a
Yeah.
Supreme Court order. So, what is going on with this situation?
Well, I want us to be grounded in the fact that we know that we're in a constitutional crisis. There are a lot of folks that would say, well, what does that mean? A constitutional crisis is happening anytime one of the co-equal branches of government, there's legislative, there's judicial, and there's executive. So any of those branches defies the other one, right? So the Trump administration has been regularly defying the judicial branch. They've tweeted about it. We talk about it on our show that's called Native Land Pod. We have gone in about how we know we are at multiple levels of a constitutional crisis. This is the first court order, right? Supreme Court is the latest court order that they are choosing to openly defy. It's like my mom when she's she's not listening to us, she'll say okay and then do what she wants to do. That is by definition a constitutional crisis when you say okay and then do whatever it is that you want to do. So I think that we have to understand that. Now, there are a lot of folks who may say, well, what does it have to do with me? Well, it has everything to do with you because there's something called Miranda rights, right? That's a constitutional protection. There's something called equal protection that our folks fought for. That is a constitutional protection. There's free speech. There's the right to protest, all of these things, the right to assemble, all of these things that are constitutional protections. If they're saying we are defying the Constitution, everything that makes you free, even if we know there are varying degrees of freedom in this country, those are all up for grabs. And so I just finished a live podcast earlier before this interview where I was talking about what it means to tap into our humanity in this moment, because we are so driven by borders now. That we will forget someone's humanity, we'll turn a blind eye to their suffering if they're across a border, wherever that border might be. It might be Mexico, Central America, it could be across the ocean in the continent, right? It could be in the Ukraine, wherever it is where you said, you know what, I got too much of my stuff to deal with. I can't even pay attention to yours. That is also a crisis. That's a humanitarian crisis. So anytime where our convictions no longer allow us to see and want to aid the suffering of somebody else, we have a problem. And I think that is where we are. If it doesn't rise to, a viral moment on social media, people don't care. And we got to deal with ourselves on that because that's really not right.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. He's hit a nerve in our country that I feel like the Democratic Party wasn't able to hit in time. What do you feel the Democratic Party could have done to thwart him winning? And who do you think like the next Democratic superstar will be? Because we can blame him, but we have to give some blame to the party for not executing as well as it could.
They're propping Gavin Newsom up to be a Democratic superstar.
Easy slaughter.
What I will tell you, Troy, Rashad, maybe less so. Troy, you clearly
Ian.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ian.
Okay.
What I will tell you is just
Troy,
like now I'm in trouble. I was gonna say you clearly don't listen to our show. You can be like, you ain't listening to Blackout either. I'm sorry. But I will tell you what I'll tell you is we have almost written a book at this point about this. There's so many things that went wrong, right?
Yeah.
From the lack of engagement in community to the conversations y'all know better than me around economics that y'all have all the time. If people are saying, I'm hurting, I need help, y'all help, you guys go into cities and tell people how they can do better for themselves. The party's telling people the economy's great. And people are like, where? Not mine, not my personal economics. And the people are like, no, but it's great. I promise you it's great. that's not the right message for people who are like, I cannot feel what is different. And so I think the biggest mistake was not listening to people on the ground, telling people where they actually were. I think oh my God, there's so many areas. Literally, like going into community, listening to folks, talking about issues people actually care about, having a narrative around immigration policy that makes sense to folks who have been conditioned to believe and have seen, in some instances, people taking their jobs or their kids not being able to learn properly in school or programs being cut that they really care about. So I think that there were a lot of big misses. I really don't care who the next Democratic superstar is. Right now, I just care about meeting the needs of our people. For Gavin Newsom, I'm going to wager that if he keeps going down the road that he's on, he was a big Kamala Harris hater. I think that he's going to end up running as a moderate Republican. Like, why is he platforming these guys who are very toxic and dangerous?
Made a switch for sure.
And I
Yep.
think that he's trying to neutralize himself so he can go in that way. I feel like I was like, he's
Yep.
giving like Arnold Schwarzenegger vibes, in terms of how he's trying to moderate right now, which is really, really fascinating. I'm always wary of those people because it doesn't seem like they're principled. It seems like they'll do anything to get a win. Y'all know some of those folks in business too,
For
right?
sure.
Like you will do whatever it takes to get across the finish line to make a check. And
Well,
I
let me
think
ask you this, because I feel like I'm not totally tapped into what Gavin Newsom is doing, but I heard somebody saying that from what they said, they painted it a different way. They said like he's actually smart for embracing conservative voices to build a bridge between liberal and conservatives, and he's building a coalition of broad range support going into the
Yeah, the
next
great
election.
PR team.
um
That's political bricks. Let's go. What? You
Yeah.
lining up with all the light MAGA people and saying you're building a bridge where?
Well, and I guess that's my question. I guess my question to you all would be, if somebody has demonstrated a propensity to causing harm to your people, do you want someone who's going to be building bridges with them? I think it's one thing to have conversations about, hey, where are we missing each other, right? What is penetrating your psyche that I'm not getting? What am I not grasping? That's different. But to platform people and then to find points of agreement that are violent or cause harm to others, I think is very different. For example, there have also been elected officials really on both sides of the aisle who are engaging in this DEI narrative that is also very dangerous. This didn't earn it. Every time they see a black face, the idea is that this person doesn't have a right to be there, that they're not smart enough, dope enough, and incredible enough to exist or occupy a space. That is insanity to me. That is violent to it's anti-black rhetoric. That's where they started with CRT, which is critical race theory. That's where they started about the anti-woke agenda. All that stuff is anti-black. And I think it's upon all of us, Ian and Rashad, to make sure that we're challenging that on every side. Don't let anybody come in and tell us what black folks aren't capable of. We built this entire country. That's what you're not going to do. We didn't get credit for it. We didn't get paid for it, but those days are over, right? So I think it's really, really important that we say, if you're building a bridge, tell me what that bridge is made of, because it better not be the bloodshed of our people, and it better not be across the backs of black folks who've already sacrificed enough in this country.
Well, let me ask you this. Back to this El Salvador thing, because it's a two-part question that I have. Because you're right, he has defined judges, and now he's defined the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land. So for me, somebody that's not fully educated on how this whole thing works, what's the recourse for somebody that just says, no, I don't care what you say, right? Is there any recourse or punishment for that? And the second part to that question is, now he's saying that he wants to deport American citizens. How dangerous is that? Because if the Supreme Court, because they say like there's no legal precedent that he has to do that, but he doesn't need a legal precedent. He could just start sending people to El Salvador and just say, what are you going to do about it, right? So what's the recourse for somebody that just goes rogue?
Exactly.
There's no recourse.
Exactly. Like the reason why I'm saying exactly like that is because this is the thing that we were wrestling with and inviting people to wrestle with during the election, right? This isn't about being a diehard Democrat or progressive or anything else. This is about, if you care about our opportunities, as treacherous as this country is. I know I don't want to go backwards. I'm not trying to go back to right before the 1964 Civil Rights Act. I'm not trying to go back to Plessy versus Ferguson. The ruling was separate but equal, but it was really separate and very much unequal. I'm not trying to go back to pre-Emancipation Proclamation days. I'm not trying to go back to pre-Juneteenth, right? And so people are like, oh, no way. We are there. They have literally unraveled most of our civil rights protections in the first 2 months. They have dismantled civil rights offices and divisions all throughout the federal government. They have hamstrung and tied up and cut off grants that are designed for our benefit. And people are like, I like him. He's tough. Now he's tough on your ass. Now what you gonna do? And so here's the thing.
Yeah.
I want us to be very clear about what's before us. He ran on law and order. He was the same person in 2016 who told a supporter at a North Carolina rally that he would pay his legal fines for punching a black man in the face. This is the same person, and people propped him up. You can blame hip hop in the 80s and 90s. You can blame lifestyles of the rich and famous, but what you should be blaming are your own eyes and your ability to translate beyond a STEMI check. Your ability to translate beyond PPP, some of which we have homies that are being locked up right now for PPP fraud. So some of the stuff that you thought was like, oh, he got it, we out. No, you're really not. And now he was in the office, as you probably know, Rashad, with the El Salvador president. And he said, it was Nayib Bukele. He said, we have some homegrowns, right?
Yeah.
And he talked about you need to build more prisons. Who do y'all think about when he's talking about
He said
homegrown?
5
Well,
or
he
6
doubled.
more.
I don't. Did you hear when he doubled down on it
Yeah. And
today?
but
When
yes.
he
Go
said
ahead.
like if you hit somebody in the back of the head, if you push somebody on the train track, these are people that should get sent to El Salvador. Paraphrasing.
Now
So
let me
he's not just throwing this out there. He's actually thought this through his
yes.
brain and has an idea that he wants to send American citizens to El Salvador.
This is my point. And what I want to emphasize for all of us, I'm sure we all have loved ones incarcerated, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he's talking about homegrowns, he's thinking about those same young men that he took out a full page ad on in 3 New York newspapers, the Central Park 5, now the exonerated 5. So the homegrowns in Donald Trump's mind could be accused but not found guilty. The homegrowns in Donald Trump's mind could be Trayvon Martin getting shot and killed by George Zimmerman. The homegrowns could be the same person who we watch suffer for 9 minutes and 30 seconds on air. That is George Floyd. The homegrowns are us. When he's talking about homegrowns, he's not talking about the insurrectionists that were at the Capitol on January 6th in 2021. He's not talking about folks that would have upheld the Confederacy in the 1800s. He's talking about people who look like you and me. If they can go get a Pakistani or a Palestinian or a Latino, certainly they can go get a black person. Yeah. So the homegrowns are us. We are homegrown. We are the ones that when we say something they don't like, they are in our Twitter feeds telling us to go to another country if we hate it here so bad. We are the homegrowns. So that is why we must protect when we see somebody suffering. That should not be a question for us, y'all. And we also have to be smart about our math. Now, y'all do math better than me, right? I hope so. And what we know is that we should not be in the politics or the people building of subtraction or division. We've got to add, we've got to multiply, because there aren't enough of us here. We are globally, right, throughout the diaspora, but there's not enough of us here. So we should be building and finding coalition to stand with people where we see injustice, where we see oppression, where we see systemic abuse. That's where we are right now. So even if we don't understand everything about immigration, what we should know is that we have equal protection under the law. We are taxpayers. Taxpayers should be protected. Human beings should be taken care of, not abused. That should be a line in the sand.